Welcome to We the People's Forum. This is our first ever, a big pilot run. We had a small test run just a couple weeks ago with just a couple of friends and among the team that's building us amongst ourselves. But this is our first real public run at this. So welcome to We the People's Forum. This is a place featuring, it's a brand new Brave Angels event featuring American voices working for a more unified America. So this is a place where everyday people of all races, classes, and places will share their stories and ideas on the issues of the day. And I'm your host for today, David Lapp. I'm a co-founder of Braver Angels and director of the Working People's Project at Braver Angels. I live in South Lebanon, Ohio. And today we're joined by two speakers to discuss the question, how can America's political system work for the working class? And those two speakers are Jason Clark. Jason, if you could just wave your hand so people can see you there. Jason is a stay-at-home dad. He's a former factory worker, home remodeler, and many other occupations from South Lebanon, Ohio, just down the street. We're neighbors, and he is a self-described progressive independent who admires Bernie Sanders. And then Lance Nickol is our other speaker. Lance, give a wave. He's a utility locator and father of five from Westchester, Ohio, which is just a couple of towns away from South Lebanon. And before he lived in Westchester, he lived just down the street here in South Lebanon. And Lance is a self-described conservative who voted for Donald Trump. So what's going to happen tonight is two things. First, we'll have a lively conversation with Jason and Lance. Then we're going to have plenty of time for a lively Q&A and discussion time with all of you out there. And during this time, anyone will be able to ask a question. And given that the topic tonight is how can we make America's political system work for the working class, anyone, if you see yourself as working class and you have something to say about this issue, you want to weigh in, then you'll have a chance to say something during that time. You can just raise your hand or we'll give you instructions on how to do that. But first, we're going to have a conversation here with Lance and Jason. So just two basic Zoom things. Be on mute when you're not talking or asking a question. And then we'll get into more, we'll explain this more once we get into the Q&A and discussion time. But we'll be using the raise your hand feature that Zoom has here. And if you wouldn't mind just taking a moment just to find that. In my Zoom, under the bottom, it says raise hand. You just click on that. Just show me that you see that so that you know how to work that. Yep, people are doing that. And Patricia, you're physically raising your hand. That's fine too. If that's what works for you, that you can just physically raise your hand. But yep, everybody's raising their hand, and we've got several screens here. So we've got more than 50 people here tonight, folks. So great to see this turnout. All right, I'm going to lower my hand now, and invite you all to do the same. But yes, for those of you who don't know, the raise your hand feature is at the bottom of your menu, and you can just click on that. But we'll go more into that when it's time for that. So, okay, let's jump right in here. Lance and Jason. So some of you may have listened to, but there was a Braver Angels podcast about a month ago that we did with Lance and Jason called A Multiracial Working Class Revolution, ? And the two of you, Lance and Jason, agreed that America's political system is rigged against the working class. Jason, you said, and I quote, "Everybody wants the same thing. We want jobs and we want opportunity, and it's not out there. And it's not going to be out there because the system is rigged." End quote. Lance, you said on that podcast, quote, "I think it's rigged. It's the rich trying to get richer. It's never enough for them. Politics is rigged. The whole thing is rigged because I think we're moving towards a bad kind of government. They're trying to get rid of democracy. Democracy is dying, which is a shame because we, the people, are supposed to preserve that. It's all a money game. It's how much money can I make off of this person?" End quote. So today we're going to take a deeper dive into what an unrigged system would look like and how we would get there. So what would it look like if America's political and economic systems are working for working people? what would that look like? How would we know that we're there? So that will be the focus of our conversation today. But I do want to first ask you both about your personal experiences as working class Americans here. And so, Lance, starting with you, Lance, how have you personally experienced the system as rigged against you? In other words, what are some things that you've experienced that indicate to you, that tell you that there's a rigged system out there? And it might be something economic or political, something that you've experienced that indicates to you that there's a rigged system out there. Go ahead, Lance.
What indicates to me that the system is rigged is one, I've experienced more on a working level, like working for corporations and stuff like that, but physically seeing it, like seeing what's going on in the world and stuff like that, things are starting to become rigged in the aspect of only people with tons of money can do what they want to do. Like I said, the way I personally have experienced it is working for corporations and stuff like that. Specifically, temp agencies and stuff like that. That's basically rigged to it's basically so they can get cheap labor, and they don't have to pay you benefits and stuff like that. And I've had jobs where I'm there for 5 months and 15 days, and the hiring point's at 6 months, and they'll get rid of me even though I've done a great job, and they'll come up with a reason why they don't need me anymore. But those times are behind me now. I've got a great job now that I'm happy with. But sorry, I'm trying to think of some more examples.
No, that's fine. I mean, Lance, you mentioned, and I know just from knowing you over the years, I know what you're talking about. Just, I guess, share just to give people a sense of what it is that you're describing. Share, one of those experiences that you've experienced in the workplace where, you felt like it's been an unfair outcome, that it wasn't a fair outcome for the worker.
I worked in a retirement home as a housekeeper some years ago, and my specific position was a housekeeper. There was housekeeping and there was laundry. This particular day that I went into work, the laundry person had called off that day, and the supervisor said, "Hey, I need you in laundry." And I told her, I was like, "I am not a laundry person. I am a housekeeper. I don't know how to work those washers and dryers. I don't know the pickup points. I don't know drop off times. I don't know anything like that." And she said, "It'll be okay. Just do your best. That's all I'm asking of you." I had maybe done laundry for an hour, and she came in fighting mad and said that I was fired, that laundry was behind. Personally, I think she was just trying to get rid of me because we were fully staffed and she was trying to get her boyfriend a job there. But I have no proof of that. But anyway, she came in fighting mad and said that I was fired, that I had to exit the building immediately and stuff. I just felt it was kind of unfair because I was put in a position that I was not trained to do. And I said that, like, clearly, that I was not trained to do that job. I don't feel comfortable doing it. And she put me in there anyway, and I was fired. Another quick example was I was a mechanic. Well, I guess I'm still a mechanic, I guess. But I worked for a company, and it's a very large corporation. They have them in most states. But anyway, my wife, a couple of Februarys ago, back when this coronavirus stuff first came out, we weren't really fully aware of it. She got very sick. She was sick for about a week, the sickest I've ever seen her. But she was sick. I missed 4 out of those 5 days that week. I did go to work for a full day in the middle of the week, but I was let go at the beginning of the next week for missing too many days of work, even though it was to take care of my wife. Like, she was bedridden. She couldn't even get out of bed. And I have 5 kids as well, so I had to stay home to help take care of the kids because we don't have childcare. But they let me go because of that, and I felt that was pretty unfair because I was just doing my duties as a father and a husband.
And if I'm not mistaken, Lance, your wife, she was actually in the hospital for a little bit because of that.
She was in there for about a day and a half. Yeah.
So the company fired you, let you go for missing some time, having to take sick days, basically.
Right. Right.
So then you were unable to collect unemployment, I would imagine, because it wasn't voluntary. I mean, you didn't lose your job, you were fired. So you weren't able to collect unemployment then?
Yeah, I tried to collect unemployment just for a little bit while I got another job. But they said that because the termination was due to attendance, that I couldn't get unemployment.
Got it. Lance, remind us your political leanings, how you think about the world politically, how you lean.
I lean red. I'm conservative with libertarian leanings. But in how I view the world, I don't know. Not good.
When you voted for Donald Trump, why?
I voted for him because in the beginning, before he ran for president, the only thing I knew him from was The Apprentice. And he had the reputation, mean guy, bad mouth, kind of stuff like that. But when he first started running, I was leaning more towards Ben Carson or Ted Cruz. But I just started noticing that Donald Trump was different. He's not a politician. He's an American businessman. Most people, when they think of the American dream, they think of success, money, easy life, stuff like that. And I think if you look that up in the dictionary, there would be a picture of him. But I liked him because he was a businessman. He knows how to get things done. He doesn't play around. He doesn't mess around. He says what needs to be said and does what needs to be done.
All right. Thank you, Lance. Jason, let's go to you. Let's hear from you. What have been some experiences? How have you personally experienced the system as rigged against you? Again, whether that's economically or politically, how have you experienced the system as rigged against you? And Jason, just unmute yourself. There you go. There you are. Go for it.
Hi, everybody. It's good being with you. One of the ways that I've experienced it, and I actually believe a whole lot of our guests tonight will kind of relate to this, except on the younger generations, unfortunately. As many of us know, when we was growing up, our father could go out to get a job, and then our mothers could stay home and raise the children. And that's no longer the future for these newer generations coming forward. And it's sad because now we're going from families that are children that were being raised under the household are now basically being ran for companies, and the price of daycare is going up and up, and it's really I feel like it's degrading the home situation. And I'd be curious to see, as these newer generations that actually don't get to grow up in the household, because now it's taken both parents to work a job, sometimes two jobs for both parents, just to even, make it working anywhere from 50 plus hours, a week. It saddens me. And that's due to the lobbyists being sent into the corporations and the rich, buying our politicians and sending, pushing their agendas. And I'd say politically, how the game has been rigged against us. And then again, I think everybody can feel this. It's the Electoral College. I mean, it's set up and it's designed for the wealthy to choose our president. It's funny. I didn't actually figure this out until around Obama ran. But it's the super delegates who actually choose the president. It's not the will of the people. And who are they? They're multi-million dollar politicians. And it's just the whole system has been designed to where the rich are always going to really be the determining factors and what takes place. And unless we come out and record, it's sad that the American people have to come out and break records in voting just to choose the president that they want, and that's still not even guaranteed. If the super delegates didn't want to go for it, then that won't even be the president, just to name a couple.
And Jason, economically, what's it been like for you? Has that been, do you feel like economically the system is working, or have you experienced that as basically being rigged?
No, it's definitely rigged. I mean, the numbers are in. I mean, there's a reason why the working class is eroding. You know what I mean? There's a reason why there's a huge wealth gap that's like 10 times what it used to be. And this is what happens. This is when the corporations go in and they push their agenda, and roll back regulation and actually have their lawyers write the laws that these politicians enact. It's always going to be in the corporate interest. It's always going to be in the interest of the rich. That's why the wealth gap is astronomical. It's absolutely rigged.
Jason, you were telling me once about how one of your former jobs was you worked at a meatpacking plant, and you were, if I'm not mistaken, you were a union steward in that job. And so you had a union there, but it was still, you felt like it was hard to make progress for the workers there.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, the tactics that I learned, that I've seen there work in hand, are the exact same tactics that they use on the American people. So I was a union steward there. It was a meat packing place, and it was broke up of basically three groups. We had black employees, we had white employees, and we had some from Guatemala and other Southern American states. And they were real good at using the divide tactics to where the unity wasn't very strong. And if anybody's ever been in a union, they know the union's only as strong as the people that it's in it. If they come together, then things get done. But if they're broken, and they exploit that, and that's what they're real good at. They exploit the divisions, and that way they just do run of the mill and have their way. So, they put people in unsafe work conditions, and then they want to hold you responsible as the worker when you don't want to risk getting salmonella or something because, say, they didn't have the right antibacterial soap at the time, but they expect you to still do it. And you see that same thing just like with when they roll back the regulations and pollute our water, they pollute our air. It's the exact same thing. They just take what they use in the business and they apply it to the American people. And we're paying the price for it, man. The corruption is deep.
So in that particular job, how did they, in your experience, it was the management was kind of dividing people based on race, ethnicity, leveraging that to divide workers? What did that look like? How did that happen?
Well, let's say something would happen to where in the contract there was a certain amount of overtime that they were supposed to give, like they weren't supposed to go past that, but they would want to keep going way over that. And the Guatemalans at the time was there. They were just like, if the company said do something, they did it. And there was no unity. We couldn't get people to stay together and be like, listen, you're only supposed to work us 40 hours a week. And this is just an example, 40 hours a week, but they're trying to work us 60 hours a week. But if we don't stand together on it, then that's how they would divide it. You know what I mean? They would use the weaknesses within the people and just do what they'd want to do. And they would pit us like that. That's what I'm saying. Like if there's a meat packing line and there's different various safety things that you need to have in place in order to do the job safe. Well, if it wouldn't have it there, then they would just put whoever they knew would do the job anyways, or whoever was scared not to. And that's how they would work that.
Got it. So Jason, I want to stay with you here okay, so let's go a little bit here into thinking about what would it look like for the political and economic systems to be working for the working class, for the middle class, for the regular person in America. What do you think would need to happen in order for our systems to be unrigged? For the systems to work, for the political and economic systems to work for the working class. And by the way, while you're thinking about that, Jason, Apple just texted out something important, chatted something out important to everyone, noting that we're going to be giving everyone a chance to ask questions for Lance and Jason. And at that point, you can raise your hand once we're at that time. You could let Apple know ahead of time if you already know your question. You could just chat him. That's Apple Muncie. And also during that discussion time, anyone who sees themselves as working class and wants to weigh in on the conversation, you take up to 2 minutes and then you'll be able to say what you want to say. Just chat Apple to give and say, basically in a sentence what you want to say, or if you have a question, what you want to ask. So just giving you a heads up that you can start thinking about that as we get closer to that Q&A and discussion time. Okay, so Jason, what would it take? What would need to happen in order for America's systems to be unrigged?
Let me start with what that would kind of look like. If you could think of maybe like a Roosevelt era, where when the working class was actually at some of its strongest points, where it was growing, where we actually valued human life over $1, where the people were really put before the corporation. And for that to happen, unfortunately, we're going to have to come together, because as long as we're not coming together and we're divided, it's the same old game they've always used. Nothing to change. But how to get that change to actually take place is going to have to take we're going to have to take money out of politics. We're going to have to there's going to have to be something enacted to where we don't have any more of these super PACs, these PACs and all that. We got to get this dark money out of politics. But also, it shouldn't be that the ultra rich can just buy politicians. There needs to be, in my opinion, some kind of cap to where everybody, no matter what, rather that could be $500 an election, but that it should be fixed to where all individuals, no matter who they are, can a limit of $500 for a campaign. I mean, you're supposed to be running a campaign for the will of the people, not for the money. And as long as you got, these billionaires that can just come in and donate $1 million, does anyone honestly believe that they're going to look and listen to their constituents who can do, I think, a measly $1,000 in a year? No, they're going to do the will of who's really funding their campaign. And these corporations, one of the things we need to do immediately is outlaw lobbyists. How this has come about is just ridiculous, but we need to get rid of lobbyists. It's one of the worst things that's ever happened. And, those would be just some starts. I mean, but you got to understand that the society, they own everything, even the news, everything. They make us believe the population, it's a brainwashing of a type. They make you think that if you're not willing to live your whole life for a corporation, that you're a freeloader, you're a bum. And this gets ingrained from a young age all the way to when you're adults. And you think of somebody who doesn't want to work, let's say, more than 40 hours a week and rather be with their family, you want to think of them as freeloaders, when in actuality, the corporations are the freeloaders. They're getting so much government welfare from us, taking our tax dollars. It's ridiculous. But no one ever sees it from that point of view. They only see it from, the people's point of view. So it's got to change on a whole lot of levels. But I would say get money out of the politics. It has to be a flat rate so we can put it back in the hands of the people. And we have to get rid of lobbyists. So that way they can't write laws. They can't stop. minimum wage doesn't go up, not because the people don't want it. I think it's got like a 78% approval, maybe even more than that, to raise the minimum wage. But that doesn't happen because the lobbyists go in and they kill it. They go tell their politicians, hey, you want our donations? You make sure this don't pass. And if people can remember, I think Mitch McConnell stood right on the Senate floor when they was passing the Trump tax cuts and said, hey, the donor said they cut the money off. If we don't pass this, it has to pass. So, what about the people? Or is the people ever going to get something passed on their behalf?
All right. So take money out of politics. And another thing you said was the people are going to have to come together. So I want to come back to you. I want to go to Lance now, but I want to come back to you, Jason, and ask you more about that, about what would it look like for the people to come together on this. Lance, your thoughts here. What would it take in order for the system to be unrigged, to work for working class people like yourself? And feel free to respond to any of Jason's comments during your comments as well.
I think the number one way to unrig things, quote unquote, and this will probably never happen, is term limits for Senate and the House. I think that they shouldn't be able to make a career out of that. I think an 8-year term would be fair for Senate and the House, because people sit in those seats, and like Jason said, they start getting money from here and there and stuff like that, and they're like, ooh, I can start getting money out of this. I can start getting money, and then things just become corrupt. And that could be in politics, like the Senate and the House. That can be in a company. That can be anywhere. But like I said, if you can limit how long they sit in those seats, there won't be time for corruption to build. Now, what they do when they leave Senate or the House, I don't know. I mean, they could still be. They can still persuade things or influence things and stuff like that. But like I said, I think they need to get. I think they need to have term limits on Senate and the House. And just to elaborate on a few things that Jason said, I feel where he's coming from with the whole people really shouldn't have to work. If you work 40 hours a week, you don't want to work anymore, you're looked at as a bum. I understand what he's saying, that yes, I would like to spend more time with my family. But the way I personally look at it, and this is just me personally, if the company that I work for wants to make hours available to me and they want to pay me for them, I'm going to work them. Because my goal ultimately as a husband and a father is to give my children and my wife everything that I can. I want my kids to grow up with nice things and be happy and just have things that I never had growing up. And I will sacrifice my body and my time to do that. And like I said, if that's money to me. Like I said, they want to say, hey, you got to work 60 hours. Yes, sir. I just ask for one day a week to spend with my family. But I do get what he's saying. I'm not saying he's wrong. Like, I do understand what he's saying. Like, there are sometimes, me personally, I work about 55 hours a week. I get one day off a week, and that's Sunday. I work Monday through Saturday. Yeah, but I like to have one day to spend with my family. Now, like I said, some people don't like that. And there are times I'm like, man, I wish I could just go fishing, or I wish I could go hunting, or I wish I could just go to the park with my kids. I mean, I get it. And another thing, if I may elaborate on something, Jason's mentioned it a couple times about minimum wage going up. I believe, if you don't mind me referencing this, Jason, I believe the last conversation we had, you said that, correct me if I'm wrong, you said that $15 an hour won't hurt anybody. I disagree with that, because $15 an hour the people that are hurt, like for instance, the nurse that spent thousands of dollars on school, the entry-level nurse that spent thousands of dollars on school, that only gets paid $15, $16 an hour to take care of sick people. If a McDonald's worker is making $15 an hour, that devalues first certificate, to the police officer that's out there risking his life, that's only getting paid $15 an hour in a small town. That devalues him. And it devalues everybody, because just because minimum wage is $15 an hour doesn't mean that everything's going to stay the same price. If they made a national minimum wage where everything's it's $15 an hour, instead of paying, which I think is ridiculous now, $3.50 for milk, you're going to be paying $5.50 for milk. You're going to be paying $5.50 for a gallon of gas. It devalues everybody. It's just an illusion to make it feel like you make more money. I think the wages should be dependent on how much skill and how much experience you have at that particular job. I do agree that sometimes other factors can sway how much you make at a job and stuff like that. But like I said, if you're an EMT who's saving lives, or a nurse that's saving lives, you should be making $16, $17, $18 an hour at the minimum. But if you're working at McDonald's, and I don't know how it is in all the other states that you guys are from, but at least here in Ohio, if you go to any fast food restaurant, 90% of the time the service is garbage. They're rude. They act like you're inconveniencing them. They just want you out of their line. They don't say thank you, hi, how you doing today? Nothing like that. I don't want that person making $15 an hour. They're rude. And I get to the end of the line and they messed up my food. I get mistakes happen. I'm not picky about that. If you put something on my sandwich that's not supposed to be on there, I'll pick it off. That's how I was raised. But the point is they don't want to do their jobs. They do not deserve $15 an hour. And another thing on the subject of fast food restaurants are not designed for adults to make a living off of. They're designed for teenagers and young adults that are going through college, or a 16-year-old that's still living with his mom and dad, to earn some money to buy a car, or to save up for college, or just for playing around money. They weren't designed to make a living off of. But that's just how I feel.
Lance, I want to give Jason a chance to respond to anything that you said, but so Jason, you've been thinking about that, but I also want to ask you, Lance, what would you see as some of the solutions or the ways to address, I mean, like just from your own story, you gave the example of one of the employers fired you basically, for taking some sick days when, that was, employers shouldn't be doing that. What would you do about cases like that where worker rights aren't being respected? What would you like to see be done about that?
I know some corporations do it already, some don't. I think it's mainly unions that do it. But I think they need to, if something's reported, like say, for instance, that happened to me, I should be able to call headquarters and say, hey, my name is Lance, this is my employee number, this is what happened. And I think they should have somebody look into it and determine what's fair and what's not fair. But I mean, that's basically called a union. They do that already, but not every job has a union.
Are you in favor of unions, Lance?
I'm not knowledgeable enough on unions to say either way. I only know a tiny bit about them. But I mean, like I said, I'm okay with worker representation. There does need to be a person you can go to and say, hey, this is what happened. Now, like on the other hand, like for instance, I worked for Kroger when I was like 18 years old, and I worked in the deli, and Kroger's part of a union. And that's exactly what happened. I was working, I was closing. There was a policy of you can't eat food without paying for it, which is completely understandable. But we closed at 10. It was like 10:30. I was cleaning the fryer, and I picked a piece of fried chicken breading out of the fryer basket. It wasn't old or nothing, and I ate it.
Who among us would not do that?
It was fresh, but the manager saw me, like the store manager saw me, and suspended me for a week without pay. And I called the union and I let them know what happened. And they basically asked the manager, they're like, was that a piece of food that you guys could sell? And he's like, no. And he's like, okay, then why is he being punished he technically didn't eat anything that you guys sell. So that's not against the rules. and they put me back with pay and gave me the money for the 3 days that I missed. So I mean, that was fair. That's how that should work. But like I said, there has to be it would have to be worked out a little more, because there are some people that will cry wolf and stuff like that all the time. So I mean, there needs to be a thorough investigation on both parties, the corporation and the worker.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jason, any responses to what the Lance said? And feel free to elaborate too more on what you mean by what it would look like for the people to come together to address these challenges.
All right. Yep. First, I agree with Lance on term limits 100%. And another thing I agree with Lance on is when he's talking about the $40 an hour, he wants to work more to provide more for his family. I'm 100% agreeing with that. I just don't think companies should be able to mandate it at the pay they do right now. If you're somebody that wants to work, hey, if you want to you want to work 70 hours, I think that's great. I think you should be able to do whatever you want. I just don't think you should be mandated to do it. That's all I'm saying about that. I don't think you should mandate it. If you want to work hours, I think that's fabulous. Okay. Now, as far as the minimum wage, we have to understand that the economy has tripled outpaced, the cost of living is tripled outpaced $7, I want to say, and 60 cents an hour, if that's what minimum wage is. Childcare has outpaced that. What America is our economy is the capitalist / socialist economy. Okay. So what that means is there's going to be a thing called competitive wages. And that's where the jobs actually have to compete for the workers. So you're not going to actually devalue anybody. When you move the $15 up an hour, what that means is all the other jobs that are 15, like the healthcare workers, they're going to go up to 20 to 25 bucks an hour, because they're going to have to try to retain those people. Because you just said the key word. Why would I work for you for $15 an hour when I can go work at McDonald's? So that's how our system is designed. It'd be competitive wages, and it'd be on the jobs to increase the wages. That already happens, and that happened now. And it's like already happened due to COVID, because as you see now, there's an ice cream shop that moved up to $15 an hour. There's numerous. I think Chipotle, they moved up now to $15 an hour. Everybody's gonna move it up to $15 an hour. But let me get into details a little bit here. Now, we're talking $15 an hour in incremental steps. It's not going to be overnight, it's $15 an hour. We're talking it could be over a 5-year process, over a 10-year process. It could be, I would prefer to see it over a 5-year process, that it gets to the 15 minimum wage. Hold on, I just had a brain freeze for a moment. Oh, yeah, okay. So now, the downside, when I said it won't hurt anybody, I want to take into consideration, we have to understand there's micro businesses, small businesses, and big businesses, corporations, and all that. If we have a people's government, they can easily put into legislation to where small business and micro businesses get a huge tax break instead of the corporations getting a tax break. Say if you have 10 employees or less, you'll recoup that $15 an hour, so you don't have to pass it on to the thing. We do that for corporations all day long. The problem is people tend to think when you say business, they think all businesses fall under the same umbrella, and it's just not true. Small businesses don't get the same tax breaks that huge corporations do. Everything's set on a money denomination. And plus, big corporations and all that got the $200,000 lawyers, so they do the loopholes, shipping the jobs overseas, and all this that they got. But we could enact legislation that protects any small business and micro business that could possibly be hurt from the $15 minimum wage. Now, what was the last thing you said you wanted me to?
Yeah, before we go to Q&A and discussion time here, Jason, just tell us, you said that what would have to happen in order for the system to be unrigged is that the people would have to come together. So What would that look like for the people to come together? And what do you mean by the people?
Like the voters, you know, the working class, the middle class is kind of starting to turn into the working poor. So, you know, I would say basically the working class people, the poor, we're going to have to come together because, you know, they use the social issues to divide us. You know, and this is, like I said, this is done, we're taught that pro-business is everything. So knowledge, people has to be more informed, but there's a lot of disinformation out there, and it's kind of disheartening because, you know, a lot of people like to run in the circles and hear what makes them good. And when you do that, it's easy to manipulate the masses. So we need some kind of education. There's a reason why they don't want to fund schools. You know what I'm saying? They don't want to fund schools. They'll spend billions of dollars on the military schooling, because if you have an educated population, it's harder to control them. So in order for us to come together, we need to, you know, it's not a mixture of things. There's no silver bullet in this. We need more outlets like this and other outlets to where people can bounce ideals, but not in an echo chamber. People gotta be comfortable and come out of what they've been and hear new ideals. And, you know, we got to educate them on how the system rigged against us with all this.
Jason, sorry, we're losing you a little bit. We're losing you a little bit there on your audio. Maybe just turn off your video for the time being, just so sometimes if you turn off your video, the audio is a little bit better. We're just losing you a little bit at the end there. There you go. Okay, well, let's go over to, let's open it up here for Q&A and discussion. So again, as Apple mentioned in the chat, two things here. One is anyone who has a question can raise your Zoom hand like that, and raise your hand and we'll call on you and ask a question. Or if you see yourself as working class, you want to weigh in on this question, how can America's political systems work for the working class? Feel free to speak up. We'll call on you and we'll give you up to 2 minutes to say what you want to say. So questions or comments, depending on where you're coming from. And so I see that Rita, you've got your hand up.
Yes.
So Rita, go ahead and unmute yourself. Go for it, Rita.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say thank you to both Lance and I'm sorry.
Jason.
Jason, thank you. We really appreciate that you're sharing this very personal experience with us, because so many of us do not have this experience, and that's where it really counts. So thank you so much for being willing. I am interested to ask you, if I know that the workplace is not really the best place to find people that are really looking out for your best interests, but in your leadership, are there bright spots? Have you found people within the leadership that you do feel are morally, looking out for the best interest as much as possible of you, for you?
And you're asking this both Jason and Lance?
Yes, both of them.
All right.
If you don't mind, I'll take this one first. So are you, just to elaborate, are you asking, in some of the jobs that I've had, have I found supervisors or leadership that are morally on the moral side? Absolutely. The job that I have currently, I absolutely love this country, or job. Yeah, I work for USIC, so US. Anyway, the job that I have, all the supervisors have started from an entry-level position and worked their way up. But the difference between this company and other companies I work for is this company is a LLC. It's not a corporation. But I don't know if where'd you say you were from? I'm sorry. Louisiana?
Actually Arkansas, but Louisiana, Arkansas, Louisiana.
Okay, yeah, I'm basically the guy that shows up when you call 811. The call before you dig. But anyway, the supervisors there, they do care about each and every single one of us individually. And there's actually a company policy: if you don't feel safe doing a job, do not do it. and it's called our timeout authority. So, I mean, that could be anything from we see a big dog in the yard, or the homeowner's acting weird, or anything like that. If we say, hey, we don't feel safe, there's no repercussions for it. They don't punish us. They say, okay, try again later, or they'll send a supervisor out there to fix the situation. But yeah, and I've had another manager at one of the garages that I worked at. He was a great guy. He cared for me and all the other workers personally. So I mean, I do believe there are good people in leadership roles, but not always. But yes, I have came across a few.
Jason, you have anything? Oh, sorry, Rita. Jason, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. As a union steward, dealing with, I lost my track here. Dealing with the office management. Yes, you find great people. It's like anything in life. There's always going to be good people, and then there's going to be bad people. The only problem is sometimes it's the structure of the company that doesn't allow someone who is good and kind-hearted and wants to do the right thing to be able to do the right thing all the time. And that's due because the company structure is, no matter what, in the eyes of the company, it can do no wrong. And that's because, they can be held liable for lawsuits and everything. So even when someone knows they want to do the right thing, sometimes they can't do it. But to answer your question, yes, you find good-hearted people everywhere.
I'm so glad to hear that is something that, and the care that you have for your families, but that you do have that in your workplace. So thank you for answering that.
No problem.
And I want to go to Tay next. Tay, you can unmute yourself, and then after Tay, Arash. And invite you to, if you are making a comment or asking a question, if you are able to, go ahead and start your video so that we can see you, if that's possible. All right, Tay, you got a question or a comment? And go ahead and unmute yourself. There you go.
I guess kind of both. Also, sorry, I'm a little late. I had to work a little late. Actually, and I wanted to comment what Lance was saying about working the extra to make sure his family's okay. I truly resonated with that, from coming from someone who was homeless, and now like I'll work the hour just to make sure everything's okay. I truly understood where he was coming from with that. My question, I guess, to both Jason and Lance is, how do you feel if you had to do a job change now? What would be the things you would look for? Like, would it be basically a company that cares about a person, or a company that pays well, or a company that basically has different things that you would personally would look for?
Do you want to take this one first, Jason, or do you want me to?
I can. This is a very good question. I've been a stay-home dad for a while. I would, just to be 100% honest with you, I would probably determine it on my hours because of my children. My wife passed away last year, so since it's just me, a lot of the determination would actually have to be for my kids, because I have to be here. I have no choice. So that's what would actually determine is how flexible the hours would be. If that wasn't the case, then I would probably go off of money, and probably I really like working for myself, to be honest with you. Like when I used to rent houses, I would buy them, I'd go fix them up, and then I'd rent them out. So I'd probably try to get back into that.
What about you, Lance?
If I were to leave my current job now and go to find another one, my first thing I would look for is what the job is. Next, I would look for how much they pay. But the most important thing to me would be, I would look for how much they care for their workers. Like basically, I'm okay with stern leadership. Like these are the rules, they have to be followed. These are policies. This is how things work. But I like companies like the one I'm at currently. They're very family oriented. If I was out working and my wife texted me and said, "Hey, I'm throwing up. I'm not feeling good. Can you please come home? I need help with the kids." If I called my supervisor and said, "Hey, my wife's sick. I need to go home," he'd be like, "All right, go home. Take care of your family." They're very family oriented, and that's what I would look for. But I would also look for a job that has hours. Like I personally don't like working 40 hours a week. It honestly drives me insane. It makes me feel like I should be doing something else. I do like to work. Like for instance, we got a 3-day weekend coming up. I don't know what I'm gonna do with that extra day, the extra 2 days. I'm gonna feel naked, like I need to be out working. I'll just go start locating other people's yards, I guess. But no, I would look for hours. I would look for a job that's family oriented and has as much overtime as I would like.
All right, great. So next we're going to go to Arash. And forgive me if I'm saying your name wrong. Go ahead and say your name and also say where you live. Let's start that. Say where you live, and if you have a question or a comment.
Sure thing. So the name is Arash. So it's not my rash. It's not your rash. It's Arash. Okay. So Arash, I'm in Southern California in Orange County, and I have a question. I know that this was a point of disagreement for both Lance and Jason about minimum wage. So I'm curious, instead of a fixed amount of minimum wage, which could have more meaning for somebody who's in New York, who's in Midwest versus New York, how do you guys feel about the idea of pegging the minimum wage against the actual cost of living for each region? So that if the cost of living is lower where you are, well, then the wages there will be lower. If the cost of living is higher, the wages will be higher. At least the minimum wage will be higher. How do you feel about that? Do you think that would sound better balanced, fair to people who are working those minimum wage jobs? How does it affect the other part of the equation that you were mentioning, for example, Lance, as far as people who are in nursing or other education-based jobs? How would it affect them?
Thank you, Arash.
That's a good question. And honestly, I mean, from what if anything had to happen, if they're like, we are going to raise minimum wage, if anything, what you said would be a better idea than just making it $15 nationally. Because that will hurt, like Jason was kind of elaborating on it, that will hurt small businesses. There's some businesses that may only have 5 employees and they can't afford to pay somebody $15 an hour. But you bring up a good point. Like I said, I'm honestly not even quite sure what minimum wage is in Ohio. It might be high 7s, low 8s. But my biggest thing with minimum wage is inflation. As soon as any okay, say for instance the with the cost of living in Ohio, minimum wage went up to $10 an hour in Ohio, and that's just what it was. I think $10 an hour would hurt businesses less than 15. But okay, now like I said, with the $15 an hour, if you're making $10 an hour, everything else goes up, and you're still in the same boat that you was when you were making $8.50 an hour. But like I said, in my experience, at least in Ohio, a lot of jobs anymore don't pay minimum wage. Most jobs start around $9, $10, $11, $12 an hour. The average job around here is probably about $11 an hour. But to answer your question, from what you said, your idea is better than just a national minimum wage. But at the same time, I don't think it's okay for the government to tell a business how much they have to. Let me elaborate on that. I agree that there should be a minimum wage. So businesses are, all right, I'm paying you $1 an hour. There should be a minimum wage, like a bare minimum. But I don't think the government should be allowed to tell businesses you have to pay people this large amount of money an hour because we say so. Because it's not fair to the guy that works at McDonald's that he's not making $15 an hour. Well, if the guy that works at McDonald's wants $15 an hour, he should do his job properly, show up to work, don't call off, and work his way up to management and make $15 an hour.
And I looked it up, and Ohio's minimum wage right now is $8.80 an hour.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't either. Jason, you want to respond to Arash?
Yep. I think it's a fabulous question. I like it. But, well, let's take into consideration. I like 15 on a base all the way around, and I get what you're saying, because in New York, $15 is really nothing when you're paying a 1-bedroom efficiency studio for like $2,500 a month. I mean, it sounds like, let's be honest, $15 an hour I think is only what, like 30,000 a year, maybe 29,000 a year. Somewhere in like Idaho or Ohio, that's great, but somewhere like California, New York, Los Angeles, bigger cities, 15 isn't as good. But I think 15 is a base pay. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to, it bumping up more in New York, but I honestly think if you make it 15 everywhere, that those places are going to go up anyways. Because, I mean, let's be honest, they're already doing it at $8 an hour. I mean, their pay scales at McDonald's is, I think, $15 an hour in New York already, or soon should be. I mean, there's always going to be a little discrepancy. But no, I think 15 is good. I think 30,000 a year, 20,000 a year, it's not, what is considered middle class, but it's not a starving wage. You can, at 30,000 a year, you can still see your children. You can still live with relative relaxation. You don't have to live so much paycheck to paycheck. You get that little bit of, you're not so much as, I would say, like a crisis away from bankruptcy. So I think 15 is a good solid one all the way across the board. But hey, if they want to do it based on the place of but I don't know. I'm torn a little bit on that one, because I just see the corruption coming in and people keeping it low, trying to mess with the numbers and say, well, here in Ohio, Idaho, they can live off of $11 an hour. You know what I mean? But, I wouldn't be opposed to it. Anything's better than $7, $8 an hour, which is basically America's standard now.
All right. Thank you. So now I want to ask somebody who might have a comment. So this is, you see yourself as working class and you want to weigh in on the conversation. Anyone who have their hand up, did you want to make a comment? Corey, I see you've got okay, Corey, go for it. And Corey, your name and where you live, and then jump right into your comment and take up to 2 minutes.
So, can you hear me, David?
Yes.
Yeah, I fixed it. Okay. So my comment was basically, I want to clear up a misconception that a lot of people have, and it was something that Lance alluded to about fast food workers. As somebody who worked in the fast food industry for 13 years, I can tell you that people out there, the mistakes are made. We're human, we're infallible. They get made. Okay. And those people that act like the customer or being an inconvenience to them are few and far between, despite and Lance is not the only person I've heard talk about people, working in fast food restaurants that way, because it's common. It's a common misconception that actually there are a lot of us, and a lot of those people that are like that are the teens that work in those jobs. That's been the experience that I've had anyway. And number two, his comments about how they weren't designed for an adult to make a living off of. I don't agree with that. And that is because to work your way up into, they can make a 16 or 17-year-old a shift manager, but you actually run the restaurant. You're talking your general manager and shift supervisors and those kinds of things. You actually need adults for those jobs. Those restaurants don't run without adults, and it's such a common misconception. I mean, yes, I was a teen when I got my first job in a first fast food restaurant, but I went on to make a living off of that because I had no other choice. I couldn't afford to go to a trade school and learn a trade because that's not cheap. I couldn't, I had kids that I had to take care of. So yes, I worked where I had to. But I just feel like it's such a common misconception that people don't want to be there, and that those jobs were not designed for adults to make a living off of. And as far as the minimum wage goes, I feel like paying them $15 an hour as a base and then raising after that. And all the comments about small business and all that, I can agree with that to a point, but I won't get into that. But it's also a trait. It's also a skill. You have to learn certain skills to be able to perform those jobs effectively. So it's not like it's just some random person that takes a job and learns nothing. You actually have to have a good set of skills to be able to work your way up. And so, you know, that's me.
And Corey, yeah, I was gonna say wrap up in 5 seconds. And by the way, if you want to hear more of Corey's perspective on the question, are expanded unemployment benefits fair to American workers? Check out the link on the Brave Angels YouTube with the conversation that we had 2 weeks ago with Corey and Wilk. Who's on? Wilk, gonna raise your hand? Wilk is also here. That was a fascinating conversation. We'll find the link and put that in the chat so you can check that out. Okay, I want to go to, let's see here. I see that Kay, you have had your hand up for quite a while. Kay, go ahead and unmute yourself, say where you're from, and do you have a
Sure.
question or a comment?
Yeah, I was going to make a comment, basically.
And where are you from, Kay?
I'm from Suffern, New York, and I will say what has been said about the minimum wage. In New York, $15 you couldn't survive on. I would bet in New York, I was just calculating when we were talking about it, that if you made $50,000 a year, that means you'd have to be making $24 to $25 an hour just to survive, just to have a pretty decent home to live in, you know, be able to cover your expenses, and maybe not have more than maybe one child, because then you would need more money, more than $25 an hour. All right. But the other thing that I wanted to say is that I'm an older person. I can remember in the 1970s and 80s was the time when a lot of big corporations started to lay people off, have big layoffs. And one of the things that I saw happen, because my husband was one of the people who was laid off from his job at that time, one of the things that I saw happen was a shift in values, a shift away from valuing your employees more than profit. And that's what I think we're seeing happening now. I think Jason had mentioned it earlier today, that we seem to be valuing profit, companies making profits more than valuing the people. And I think that that's been a real undergirding thing of what has caused some of the, the struggles that we have right now. So the other thing that I wanted to make a comment about is that about people being more involved. I think it's not only just people coming together, being more involved in the political process. And what I mean by that is more than just voting on election day. I think people need to be involved in knowing about the issues that are important to them and being able to communicate with those we elect to office about that. And I think that the more that people are involved in this country in the political process, that is also one of the things that will limit terms. Because if you don't like what your rep is doing,
and Kay, wrap it up in 10 seconds here.
I just wanted to say those two things. Thank you
All right.
so much.
Thank you, Kay.
Lance and Jason, thank you.
Thank you.
And Pamela, you've had your hand up. Pamela, you want to tell us where you're from, and do you have a question or a comment, Pamela? And Pamela, go ahead and stop your video because we might be able to hear you better. It looks like your video is a little bit slow. Stop your video, and then talk. Oh, don't unmute yourself though. Let's see here. There you go. Now talk, Pamela. Okay, Pamela, I'm going to come back to you because we're not hearing you right now, but we'll come back to you. All right. Let's see here. It was Martin or T. Martin. T. Martin has something. Let's see. Is there a T. Martin out there? Apple, can you help me out here, Apple? No, okay. Let's go to Lou. Lou Coffee. Go ahead, Lou. Tell us where you're from, and do you have a question or a comment? Go ahead. And there you go.
I'm from Berks County, PA, and I have a question for Lance and a question for Jason. For Lance, I'd like to ask how Donald Trump has improved your life. And for Jason, has Donald Trump had any effect on your life?
Thank you, Lou.
Yeah, I believe Donald Trump has affected my life positively because for me personally, it was the cost of living it wasn't like completely fair, but it was becoming more fair. Things weren't so expensive. I can deal with paying $1.69, $1.70 for a gallon of gas. That doesn't bother me at all. And I just think things were more fairly priced. Taxes were lower. There was tax credits, tax cuts. And then just in general, jobs. There was just jobs everywhere. Unemployment was going down. Things were running smoothly. And I saw something good starting to happen within those 4 years that he was in there. And yes, he has affected my life positively.
All right, thank you. You want to restate the question for Jason, Lou?
Yeah, the question for Jason was, has Donald Trump had an effect on your life?
I think he's honestly had an effect on everybody's life. In so many different ways. As far as like economically, I don't think he did any of us any justice because the tax cuts he gave on the $2.9 trillion benefited corporations, and that was in the rich. Anything that the working class had, it done stopped. It was only set for a limited time. I think a year is what we got out of that. All of his deregulation, he did over 100, deregulated over 100 different environmental issues. That doesn't help none of us. That's now they're allowed to pollute our rivers, our waterways, which that's going to have effect on our children and the air for our children getting asthma. And I feel like he's added to the division even more so than what it was before. It's always been lightweight divided, but I think it's more visceral in the sense that you hear people more or less willing to go to war with their own family members, because you hear of a lot of civil war. So I think the discourse is a lot. I would say one thing that he has done in a positive way has kind of brought the news networks, people started to understand that they're just all pro-corporate. Everything that their agenda comes is going to be from a positive for corporation point of view. He kind of exposed the news networks for being bought and paid for. I'm trying to think of some more positive things. I mean, I'm just, it's, in my personal opinion, he was a scam artist. I mean, you'll hear people say, well, he never took his presidential pay, right? But him and his family made over like $100 million. That's the reason why he went to golfing all the time. So they, the taxpayers always paid for that. And like his business over there in Ireland, his golf course, he used to have the military fill up their jets there at the sum of something like $11-12 million. So he's made enough money to have a presidential salary 10 times over. So I just personally, I feel like everything he's done has been in a negative light, and it shows. The reason why gas prices were down is, we got to remember, we was in a recession. Gas prices are dictated on demand. When no one's leaving the house, there's no businesses. Demand is down, so that's why gas prices are down. We're going into summer. Everything's opening up. Everybody's moving around. Plus, we just had the Russians hack that refinery, so that made the prices go up. But when you really break Trump down and his presidency, you can see that it only benefited the rich, and we're yet to see how it really impacts us going on, because they say a president, you normally don't feel his first 4 years until the next 4 years. So we'll see how things go from there. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Jason. I want to now go to T. Martin and then Len. T. Martin, go ahead and unmute yourself. And do you have a question or a comment? And where are you from, T. Martin?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, hi, I'm in southeastern Michigan. The question that I had was, I think specifically directed at Lance. He was talking about paying based on skill set. Well, let's look at CEOs' pay, because the differential between CEOs and workers' pay has increased exponentially. A lot of CEOs don't really do too much. When you think about someone being a neurosurgeon, they make six figures, but they don't make CEO type money. So if you're talking about a skills-based salary economy, how do you explain that CEO differential?
I mean, I don't justify at all that CEOs making that much money. I completely agree with you. I mean, I'm sure there's things CEOs do that's very stressful, and they have to have the skill to handle that particular job and run that particular job. But yes, I agree with you. A neurosurgeon or a cardiothoracic surgeon should make way more money than a CEO, because one, they're saving lives, and that is a very intricate job they're doing. They move wrong once and the person on their table is paralyzed or worse, dead. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't justify a CEO making that much money at all. And back to what Jason was kind of saying, not in that aspect, but I mean, I think maybe there should be a salary cap on how much those positions make. But yeah, like I said, I agree with you completely. I mean, like I said, I'm not degrading them. I couldn't go and be the CEO of GM because I don't have the skill set for that job. I think that it does require some skill. But yes, I agree with what I think you're saying is, why do they make six figures from sitting in an office having a receptionist and an assistant do everything for them?
And keep in mind, they're one of the only careers that has a golden parachute, meaning whether they do a good or bad job, it's written in from the front end that when they walk out the door or get fired by the board of directors, they're walking with millions.
Right. No, I agree completely. Like I said, there's no reason for I basically think what you're saying, there's no reason for a CEO of XYZ company to be making $1.5 million a year when a neurosurgeon who's been doing it for 15 years only makes $100,000 a year, which is still good money, but they save lives and they make miracles happen with their hands and with their intelligence and their skill, because those jobs aren't for anybody.
Thank you, T. Martin. Thank you, Lance. Now, go for it, Jason. Yes, of course.
Just to give a little bit of insight on that. The CEOs, basically what they do is they elect their buddies to the board members, and the board members dictate their pay. And if unfortunately, a lot of our politicians who are in office now become actual CEOs. So it's a little roundabout that takes place there. So you did favors for me while you was in the House or the Senate. Now you get to become the CEO of this company. It's a buddy system. And that's why they make all the money. It's just like what, a long time ago, if you remember, I don't know how old you are, but, the workplace used to be for the people. And like when you had holidays and things, it was for everybody that worked there. And now it's only for management. It's the same tier that takes place there. The CEOs are politicians, and they choose their friends to sit on the board, and that's who dictates their pay. That's all I wanted to add.
All right. So we're going to have time for two more comments or questions, and we'll have to make the responses to these a little bit brief, Lance and Jason, just so we can end here on time. And I also want to, we're going to give a space here before we close for anyone to say what they're taking away from this conversation today. So you can begin thinking about that. So Len and then Pamela. And let's have you go both. Len, you say your thing or make your question. And then Pamela, you say whatever you want to say in your question. Len, go for it.
Okay, I'll make it brief. I think both Lance and Jason, you're doing a terrific job here. I'm learning a lot. One topic that's come up a lot in recent years is trade, free trade versus tariffs. So I'm wondering what you each think about that.
All right, thank you. And then Pamela, did you have a comment or a question, Pamela? And Pamela, we still can't hear you for some reason. I don't know if your microphone is working. Are you talking, Pamela? Ah, too bad. We'll get you the next time, Pamela. We can't hear you right now. Okay, Lance and Jason, he was asking about free trade, right?
You want me to go first?
Go for it.
Yeah, versus tariffs.
Versus tariffs, yeah.
Okay, tariffs, I don't think they do any good, to be honest, because in the end, when you put in tariffs, it's just that gets put back on the American people, the working classes, who has to take care of that. Free trade, it's complex because when you hear the word free trade, you think it sounds good, but that's a part of what happened with this globalization and helping to send our jobs overseas. I think it needs to be regulated. I think free trade, it's going to depend on how it's structured, in my opinion. Yeah, it's so complex to just try to really think and say on it right now. But I like free trade, but I like it with regulations where, it benefits the working class and don't benefit the rich. Because right now the free trade system benefits the rich, really, because all they do is, outsource and then come back and sell it to us at a higher rate.
Lance, any comments on that?
I mean, I'm not an economics expert, but I kind of agree on tariffs. I mean, like, I agree with saying, like, here, you either, if okay, telling a business, which again, I'm torn about it, because I don't think the government shouldn't tell a business what they can and can't do, is like in regards to how they sell things or how they do things. But at the same time, I believe in things being American made. So for instance, like the auto industry, it's like, hey, you either make your stuff in the United States or you're paying a tariff if you want to ship them, if you want to make your stuff in China and send it over here. I kind of agree with that, because it kind of persuades some companies just to make things American made. But at the same time, it really doesn't, because they'll assemble it in America and get the parts from another country. But when it comes to free trade, I honestly don't know too much about it to even comment on it. Like I said, I mean, there are certain things that we need from other countries, and there's things that we have that other countries need and stuff like that. But I think that if it's able to be made here, it needs to be made here. And I don't mind putting an extra tax on it, because it's not like the government's saying, no, you can't do it. It's just, if you do it, you're going to get taxed a little more.
All right. Thank you for that question, Len, and for your responses, Lance and Jason. So before we have a chance to check out, I want to give people who want to say in one sentence briefly what they're taking with them from this conversation today. Just a couple of things here about this forum. And I want to also call your attention to the fact that Apple Muncie has put in the chat a link to a feedback form. If you could just copy and paste that and then fill that out after we're done here, it's because we'd love to get your feedback. This is our first ever public run at this, and so we're just getting started here. And so we want to hear back from you to hear what you thought about it, to see what we could do to improve. So this is We the People's Forum. We're going to be doing this on a regular basis. We've got a team of people here that are working on this. Will, can raise your hand. He's on the team. Corey's on the team. You've already heard from Corey. Apple, you've heard from him. Jason and Lance. Darcy, raise your hand, is on the team. Is there anyone else out there on the team? So we've got a team of about 10 people that is working on this. We meet pretty regularly here. And together we've built what we've got here so far. And the idea is for ordinary people to address the issues of the day. You get to hear our stories in the process, people that we don't often hear from in the public conversation and in the media directly. And so we, the People's Forum, look for more information to come. If you have ideas on what we should be talking about or stories and speakers you'd like to see featured, you can just email me. I'm at dlap@braverangels.org. That's in the chat, dlap@braverangels.org. And we'll talk about that as a team, as we're setting our schedule here. If you'd like to join the team, if you basically, if we've got to focus here on working people, working class people. If you see yourself as a working class person and you'd like to join the team that's building this, we invite you to do that. You can just email me. So now I want to turn it over to Apple to just say a brief word about Braver Angels membership, and then we'll go to our checkout question. Apple, Muncie, the floor is yours. Why, Apple, did you become a Braver Angels member?
Oh, sorry, I had a little trouble finding the unmute button there. So, okay, folks, to be honest and frank about this, I've been watching our country spiral downward, and I think we're going to crash soon if we don't do something. It's not our leaders. It's not that our leaders aren't trying to do a good job. They're trying to do the best they can, I believe. You don't get up in the morning and go into work and say, I'm going to do a crappy job today. I think they're doing what they can. But that's not enough. Just wanting to do a good job isn't enough. And we can't replace them. We'd just be replacing them with the people that are going to be effectively doing the same. I think the solution is we need to talk amongst ourselves and figure out what to tell them, how to do a better job. That's my simple reason for being here at Bravers Angels. This is a forum where we can talk together and figure out what's going wrong and try to offer suggestions of what to do right.
Great.
And there's nothing perfect in the world. That's my say.
Great. Thank you, Apple. And I just chatted the link there. You can join Apple and all of us as Braver Angels members. Go to braverangels.org/join. Join Apple and thousands of others of us who are Reds and Blues and others coming together to depolarize America and build a house united. All right, let's go to the checkout now. And again, copy and paste that feedback form link so you can fill that out. Apple, if you don't mind putting that in there once again, the feedback form link, so that we want to get your feedback. All right, the checkout question. And just go ahead and raise your hand, your Zoom hand, and I'll just call on you real quick and say in one sentence or so, what are you taking with you from this conversation tonight? What are you taking with you from this conversation tonight? Lou, go ahead and unmute yourself.
So, Lance and Jason, two working people coming to these issues from different perspectives, I was happy to see that they agree more than they disagree.
Len.
Oh, okay. Yes. Well, yeah, I was very impressed by both Lance and Jason, and the comments they made, and learning about their experiences, and yes, how much they had in common. They both talked about, systems rigged towards the rich, and yet they came up with very different ideas for solving that.
Rita. And Rita froze on me for the moment. Let's go to David Owinski. What are you taking away with you from this conversation tonight, David?
Despite people having very different political orientations and beliefs about a lot of things, not only is there commonality, which is wonderful, but what really struck me is the sincerity of a desire to find a workable solution, the sincerity to make America work. And that part of the pain we're all feeling is we may look at things in different ways, but we all know that it isn't working, and we really deeply want it to. And that's what I took away today.
Now let's go to you, Rita. Unmute yourself.
Thank you. I just want to say that I put a very high value on personal experience, and I have a renewed and bigger understanding about working class and what they actually experience. So thank you both for sharing with us.
Pamela, who wasn't able to make a comment because her microphone isn't working, said in the chat that it is possible for people of differing views can have a civil discussion and we can agree on things. I have hope for the United States of America. Harry.
I'm impressed with throughout. Certainly, Jason.
Oh, Harry froze.
And Lance, but all others.
Yeah, go ahead, Harry. Sorry, you froze on us momentarily.
Okay, I was saying I'm impressed with how many people believe in the value and the dignity of work, and that we need to understand the skill and the craft and the hard work people do in America. And that's more important than making a lot of money or fancy titles or celebrity cultures.
And for our final three, I want to go to Julianne, Kay, and then Kay. So you can all unmute yourself. Julianne.
I just wanted to say thank you so much to Jason and Lance. It takes a lot of courage to speak up on what you believe in your experience, and you guys are true braver angels, and thank you for sharing your experience and your common ground. I totally respect that and appreciate your courage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey.
Yeah, I want to ditto what Julianne just said, and also that I really am taking away also hope and encouragement that we can come together with different points of view and talk with one another and respect and value one another.
Hey. Hey, if you could unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. I also love our events day. I'm glad you invited me. It was really nice to hear Lance and Jason talk from their point of view. And I also agree with Harry was saying about the value of work. It's really nice to know that basically people still value the quality of work and know like work ethics is a thing, because you just don't hear about that. Also to Core talking about the fast food workers. I hope I said your name right. I'm sorry. I'm glad that you said it too, because I work at IT and we do things for fast food workers. And I will say some of those fast food workers, I'm like, okay, give this person a raise, whoever this is. I don't know if they're shift lead. I agree. But I think what Lance was saying too was the quality of a person. If that person in fast food services deserves that, give them the raise. And that's honestly what I think both of you guys were saying at the same time. But thank you.
Thank you. All right, and to close us out, Lance and Jason, what are you taking with you from this conversation today? Lance.
I mean, one, I never thought people actually were interested in what I was saying. But I'm taking away that I haven't ever seen a place, like personally, where so many people want common ground. And it's nice to see all these people wanting common ground and interested and happy to see that two people with two different political leanings are agreeing with each other. Because the way people are anymore, which is dumbfounding to me, is I'm Republican, you're Democrat, get away from me, I can't talk to you, I don't like you, you're a terrible person. And that's just crazy to me. I mean, just because I agree with one thing and you have the complete opposite view of me, that's fine. We're both human beings and we can still get along. Like there's no reason to end a friendship or end a relationship or stop talking to your parents, or because like me, I'm Republican. My parents are both Democrats. We just don't bring up politics. That's just, well, like I said, I love my parents. I do anything for my parents, but we have two different political leanings. But I don't. It's just crazy how things are anymore. It's everything is so black and white anymore. There needs to be a gray area. Like people, I'll hurry up, but people think because they like one thing that they can't like the other. And it's just crazy to me. And I used to be like that a long time ago, but I've been enlightened. I've learned that, like, for instance, some people, it's silly as it sounds, some people that drink Coke say they won't touch Pepsi because they drink Coke. Who cares? Just drink whatever you want to drink. Like, just because I drive a Chevy doesn't mean I can't drive a Ford. Or if I drive a Ford, I can't drive it. Do what you like. Do what makes you happy. You live once. Live happy.
All right. Thank you, Lance. Jason, what are you taking away from this conversation today?
I would thank everybody for being in with us and joining us. All of us, no matter, like everybody has said, no matter what our backgrounds are, we all want the same thing, and it feels good to know that we really value each other as a people over money, and we all have the same thing going on. No matter who you voted for, when it comes deep down inside, we all just want to see people be happy and be able to have a good, modest life. And I'm just thankful that we have this platform going on and get a chance to bring everybody together, and we need more of it. And I think it's a win. I think it's a win for the American people because, we all get to drop little seeds that hopefully, inspire someone to maybe check into something, or even, maybe change a perspective on how they may have looked at something, and as long as, we're educating each other with a dialogue, I mean, it's a win for the people. So,
Well said, Jason. Well said. And on that note, we'll close out here. All right, let's go out there and build a house united, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
This was awesome.